Thank you. The March 26, 2026 special meeting of the San Diego Community College District Board of Trustees is hereby called to order. Good afternoon, everyone. This meeting is being conducted in a hybrid format with board members and meeting presenters participating in person. Others are participating remotely via Zoom. We also welcome any members of our district community and the members of the public who are viewing the meeting live via YouTube. In December 2023, our board adopted a district-wide land acknowledgement to publicly recognize that the land we occupy is the unceded territory and ancestral homeland of the Kumeyaay people. Miramar College student trustee Ariela Ogaro will now read the district's land acknowledgement. Trustee Ogaro?
Thank you, Board President. The San Diego Community College District and its 4 colleges acknowledge the land we occupy as the unceded territory and ancestral homeland of the Kumeyaay people, where they have lived for over 10,000 years. We honor and value the stewardship, knowledge, and cultural worldview of the Kumeyaay people and their commitment to the protection and preservation of the land and their culture. As institutions of higher education, we are responsible for providing our Indigenous community members with access, belonging, and success in their educational pursuits within an environment which celebrates their culture. We are responsible for educating all our community members about Indigenous histories and culture. We are responsible for examining and taking action to address the injustices of colonialization and occupation which have perpetuated harm against Indigenous, Black, Brown, and other communities. Through this acknowledgement, we honor the Kumeyaay people and express our commitment to truth and respect as the foundation of a relationship. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, can you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes. Everyone please stand. Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Not currently.
The board is open to receiving public comments. If anyone is interested in doing so, this is our procedure. To address the board, please fill out a comment card available in the back of the room or from the board recording secretary. If anyone participating remotely would like to make a public comment, please email boardoffice@sdccd.edu for further direction. As this is a special meeting, only public comments on items listed on the board meeting agenda shall be heard. Unless it's an emergency, no action will be taken at this board meeting, but your concerns will be referred to the chancellor, and you will be notified of the chancellor's findings and recommendations. Have we received any?
We've received one comment card so far. Aaron Evans.
Good afternoon, members of the board, Chancellor Smith. I'm an associate professor of sociology at Mesa College, and I'm also on the San Diego County Board of Education. I'm only here in my capacity as an associate professor, and I normally don't read for these things, but I am representing a group of people, faculty members in behavioral sciences, who are we're just trying to catch every opportunity to offer feedback because we don't feel like there's been a lot of space for us to offer feedback on distance education. I recently joined the district technology committee, and I really appreciate the warmth and welcoming nature of that committee. I haven't found it to be a space where I can find information about how we are traversing the very new terrain of generative AI and the ed tech that we're using in the district. So there's 3 reasons that I feel like, and my colleagues feel like, that we should be slowing down and thinking really carefully about how we facilitate dependence on online education and related digital tools. These tools are going to be entirely driven by AI, by generative AI within the next, I say 5 or 10 years, by what people are talking about who are in the field. So first, there's a growing agreement in academic research that education technology and digital tools do not improve learning outcomes. And in fact, they may hinder learning outcomes based on quality life variables like mental health and social skills and intellectual autonomy and agency. When those elements are considered, we find that learning outcomes are comparably affected, if not hindered, by education technology. This is especially the case in K through 12, but there's a lack of research in higher education, except for one such researcher, Nuime Rooks, who's a chair of Africana Studies at Brown University. She wrote a book on, it's called, part of it, what she uses a concept called Segronomics, where she looks at charter schools, but she's starting to explore education technology and how a lot of ed tech is being experimented on, our students are experimented on with this kind of technology because we don't know a lot about it. We don't have real empirical research that looks at the effects of generative AI and the usage of it with students. Second, every single time we integrate a new digital tool into our systems, that makes us more likely to become victim to cyber security violations, including data breaches that go against our contracts, our existing contracts that guarantee data privacy. Right now, I'd urge you to look at classaction.org. It's a website that tracks class action lawsuits. One such lawsuit in California is against Instructure or Canvas for data mining and monetization of our student data. That goes directly against the contracts that we're supposed to have with them. Myself and a couple of my colleagues are going to be sending emails to the board, the colleagues who couldn't be here in the middle of the afternoon. So I'll send references and academic sources for what I'm talking about today. Finally, in terms of traversing forms of structural violence, including those related to class and race and gender, ableism, I feel that this technology, again, that we are very quickly incorporating, that we can slow down and we can be a model for other districts who are trying to do the same. Again, I'm only here in my capacity as an instructor and an associate professor at Mesa College. But at the County Board of Education, we've had these study sessions as well that are dedicated to AI policy. And our CIO is talking about how we are taking every single step incredibly slow until we establish policy that can mostly guarantee that our students are protected and that our students can have the kind of education that they really deserve and that they've always gotten in our school district. So again, thank you very much for allowing me to speak here. I'm committed to keeping this under 4 minutes. Hopefully I'm doing an okay job at that. But I'd like to also just request that maybe we can have more involvement of faculty who are in the classroom with our students, both online classrooms and also in-person classrooms. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. We also have a comment from Mona Osoremi Espiritu. I am upgrading her to a panelist. So she should be able to unmute herself.
Thank you, Amanda, and good afternoon, members of the board. I'm sorry that I can't be there in person today. Could everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I appreciate the last faculty members' comments. I do teach, full disclosure, I teach online. I also teach in person. And just as a faculty member, I want to express similar concerns about online education. And, I remember very clearly when everything went online, and then now we're back to, from the data that I've seen, about 50% online. And my concern is that it's not clear whether or not we have taken a really deep dive into the impact on students, and not just the success rates broadly, but the socio emotional impact on students. I regularly meet with my online students. I really encourage them to meet with me on Zoom or in person. And oftentimes, one of my first questions is, why are you taking an online class? Because I usually hear that they're overwhelmed. Online education is difficult for them. And I also hear that they're struggling just emotionally. They're struggling with connecting with folks. So I really worry about that aspect of online education, and especially if we're considering expanding. I'm actually going to be teaching a pilot next semester where we meet once a month, where I meet once a month with my online students. So it's a sort of hybrid. We're hoping that will help to bridge the gap between online education and in person, and also to offer an alternative to being the AI police, as that's complicating online education. So I do think there's a place for it. I think for a lot of students, it works really well. But in my personal experience and some of my colleagues' experience, it's a lot of the times students are just doing it because it seems like the easiest and quickest way. I sent a letter to the board regarding some of these concerns. I also want to highlight concerns regarding ZTC. I'm a big fan of eliminating costs for students. I want education to be as close to free as we can get. But as an English professor, I have very significant concerns about eliminating books from the class or eliminating book costs. If we can shift that cost around, I think it would be great if it's free for students, but I really think we need to be taking a pedagogical approach and a really well-researched approach to any discussions about instructional materials. In long term, I see major problems along the road as far as like updating materials, when the ZTC funds are dried up. And I do think that while it looks very attractive, we should be taking it really, really slow and make sure that faculty are at the center of those conversations. So thank you for listening to my thoughts. I appreciate your consideration of the letters I sent. And I look forward to hearing what else is going to happen today. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that concludes public comment.
Thank you, Amanda. Okay, now we're going to move on to our item for this meeting. Chancellor?
Yeah, I want to thank Vice Chancellor Topham, who led the preparation of the presentation today. She is out attending conferences and won't be with us in person, but we have Dean Brian Weston, who oversees our distance education and related efforts in educational services, and who works with faculty at each of the colleges on distance education, ZTC or zero textbook cost, open education resource, and related matters. So thank you, Brian, for all the work that went into preparing this presentation. As you're making your way up, obviously COVID changed everything with online education as we had to rapidly shift to entirely online for a period of time. And since then, student demand has largely driven what our district has provided. And so frequently we'll open sections in person and online, and then that'll dictate what happens. In some cases, the online sections will fill and have wait lists very quickly, while the in-person section does not. In other cases, we see heavy student demand for the in-person section, not so much the online. And so largely what Brian is going to share with you is what we've heard from students about what their interests are, what the mix that we're currently offering is, how we support that instruction, some of the outcomes data from it, but the comments were well made, and there's a lot to consider in this. And it's not as simple as one modality works well for everyone. And so it's an ongoing discussion. Appreciate the time put into this, and I'll turn it over to Dean Weston.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for the board having me. Hello to all the online people out there, and thank you for everyone in the room joining. Today, we'll be talking again about the distance education and zero textbook costs across the district, and we'll talk about kind of that transition, especially from that 2020 era into where we are now. And I'm hoping just to provide a snapshot. And again, please stop, or if you have questions along the way, I'm happy to kind of dive into wherever we'd like to go here. The agenda is on the screen as soon as I get antiquated here. We'll talk a little bit about that digital campus. So what is the digital offerings out there? How does ZTC, again, relate to that and the whole burden-free mandate from our state chancellor's office for our students? How does this all get done? So I'm here today, but I'm speaking on the behalf of a lot of folks out there. It's a whole village and an ecosystem that really helps make this function, makes it run, helps our students and helps our faculty be successful. And I'll talk to you again about how we're trying to use that data to be informed in our decisions, and then a little bit about our future plans. So without further ado, I'll start with the first slide, which is a number. And sorry, it's not 6'7" for all those folks out there. It is 72. And 72 is a number that is important to us because it is how a lot of our students are experiencing our courses here. So 72 is the amount or percentage of our students that are taking at least one distance education course this spring semester. And so as you are talking to students, the majority of them are at least taking at least one distance education course. And we'll talk a little bit later about the reasons why, and we heard some earlier, and there's a few other reasons that our students have expressed to us on why they are taking those courses. But it is a large number, and a lot of students are experiencing that access for them. So what is distance education, right, as we get here? It's education where the time and or place is removed from each other. So basically, are you offering it online in which all the information is there and you're interacting, or again, is it online live? So it could still be at the same time, same synchronous, but it is at a different location. And so it is part of our big mission here at the district. It's providing that access and the high quality experience for our students to complete their educational goals, right? Whatever that may be, it's one part of the toolkit that we have available to us to offer that service for our students. And so speaking of students, let's see if this will work or not. I tried to put a little video embedded in here, and it's a student talking about the different modality options that we have across our district. And we'll see if it works. And if not, I'm happy to explain it. But it's nice when it comes from our students. Worth a try. Yeah.
Welcome, students. The San Diego Community College District offers courses in several ways to meet your needs. Along with on-campus classes, we have 4 different online class types to choose from when you register at San Diego City, Mesa, Miramar, and the College of Continuing Education. First is Online Live. All classwork is conducted online with required real-time or live meetings. The schedule of required meetings, dates, and times can be found in the online schedule. Second is Fully Online. All classwork is conducted online without a requirement for real-time or live meetings. Online submissions for assignments are set by faculty. Third, partially online classes require in-person class time. The required day and times are listed in the online class schedule. The remainder of the classwork will be online. Finally, HighFlex classes. You can join the scheduled class session online or on campus based on your preference. The rest of the class is conducted online. The class's day and times are listed on the online class schedule. Welcome to the San Diego Community College District.
Say it so much better than I can. So I have a few options for our folks in here, and I was going to do a little survey. If you happen to have taken one of those classes or one of those distance education modalities, can you raise your hand, or have you been part of that? Has anyone taken a HighFlex one out of curiosity? HighFlex. And it's one of our other offerings, and it is being definitely piloted and pioneered by our College of Continuing Education. The idea, again, is a student has the flexibility of showing up on ground in person in front of the instructor. Or, for example, if they're working that day and they're driving in, they can still join via Zoom or other options. So we're really trying to meet students where they're at and trying to provide the instructor the content and the ability to meet them there. So let's figure out who wants DE, or at least from what our students are saying in here. And so as you're looking at this chart, there's a pie graph on the very left-hand side outlining the 67% of our students that prefer at least a distance education course. And of course, this could be sliced and diced. And so I tried to give a little bit of perspective of who is saying they prefer distance education. And so on the right-hand side, you'll see it is distance education, but as you heard, we have a few different flavors and modalities in there. And so fully online is preferred by 36, and fully online is the idea that they shouldn't have to have a required meeting time and place. And so they should be able to complete that option at their own leisure, not at their own pace. There's still due dates in the course as they go along, but they're looking for that complete flexibility. It's different though. And we look at College of Continuing Education and 65 and older folks in there, that number changes to about 24% of folks. However, our Black students are preferring our DE options, and they're at 52%. So again, it depends on the audience and what is going on with their life. And you'll hear about work-life balance a little bit later. I can speak a little bit more if you can hear. Work-life balance a little bit later. Again, the overall percentage is 67%. So a majority of our students are preferring some kind of distance education course as it goes. But distance education, although it is near and dear to my heart, I understand the flexibility and offering, again, what we need for our students to be successful. And some of our students are absolutely saying they prefer the on-ground experience. And you're seeing that with 15% saying they would like to be here, And I took out a little piece of the undecided students. So the students that are first coming onto campus, they are preferring the on-ground experience at a rate of 24%. So as folks get familiar with the educational environment, as they're getting settled into the new kind of normal for their higher education, some of them are preferring that on-ground experience, and then they can navigate into the distance ed.
What's the N on this and how did you collect the data?
I believe the N is around 1,100. This data was collected by institutional research. And
We
they
have
sent,
90,000 students, so this is clearly not.
correct,
I appreciate if as you go through, you could
trying to,
put the data in context so that everybody would understand.
absolutely, yeah, I'll try. And this survey was conducted online. We did not mail out the survey. And so I will also make note of that. The survey was conducted online.
Which would argue that it very could be self-selecting.
Could be, yes. And yeah. Also recognizing our online application system is online and a lot of items are online. So we tried to meet folks where they're at, but absolutely, we did not survey or mail out to their to where they're at. So this is an online survey trying to get an idea of the preferences for our students here. And so this is a snapshot of just how our modalities are offered across the campus. So 61% of our current credit offerings are in distance education format. This is today, right now, and you'll see how that's kind of transcribed over the years. 56% of our non-credit or college and continuing education courses are transitioning to distance education. And there's a large push internally in that college to move some things in a more flexible format. And then again, that large number of 72% of our students are taking at least one online course here. So here's the enrollments. It is a nice bar graph, really looking at the colors as it goes. So on the left-hand side, we're looking at data starting at 2020 to 2021, when everything went online. And we had that lovely opportunity to have continued education for all of our students that weren't able to access our college. And then all the way to the very right, you're looking at the 24-25. And so what I'm trying to show here is just how our modalities have kind of settled out over the last 5 years into kind of this new normal of where does distance education live? And it used to be a subsection of our offerings here. And now it's become kind of a main player in our offerings and how our students are selecting their courses. And so if you're looking at it for currently this year, we're at 45% of our courses are completely online. We have about 10% partially online, which means they're coming on campus and they're interacting in the Canvas or online environment. And then we're about 45% on ground. So again, a big swath of our offerings are kind of being flexible, really trying to meet students where they're at. And of course, it's an ongoing enrollment to try and figure out where that sweet balance is to help our students, help our faculty offer those courses for them to complete their educational goals here. So what happens with online? This survey was conducted by the California Chancellor's Office. And so this is where I'm pulling it from their RP group. They were able to find that students that took distance education courses across the California Community College system on average earned 26 more units. And so they are completing, hopefully, their educational goal in 2 or 3 years. And we know that average is sometimes a little bit longer for some of our students. So hopefully reducing that amount of time that they have to spend. We're seeing a 19% higher percent completion in the 4 years. And this is the important part, I think, of why we should offer distance education courses. And we are hearing it from our students. I have a few quotes later. They're asking for work-life balance. They're going to work. They're trying to make sure they're balancing that. They have family obligations. We hear from them that they're taking care of their parents, they're taking care of their kids, but they still want to complete their educational goal. They want to get that knowledge in there. But they're having some challenges. And so that's where distance education comes in. Same with the transportation issue. We have some lovely metro and some buses around. However, sometimes that doesn't always allow folks to get to where they need to on campus in a timely fashion. And so we hear about transportation and some folks just aren't quite able to make it. And this helps balance that experience for them. And then really, I think my number one thing is access and accessibility. And so 2 things that somewhat go hand in hand, really being able to offer these courses so our students can complete their journey. If they're not able to be on campus, if they have to travel out, they don't have to pause their education. They're able to keep going with their journey and they're able to complete their hopefully degrees, certificate, and able to transfer on as they keep going here. And so again, I believe distance education does play an important role of what our mission is as a California community college and providing access for our community into taking that educational goal, enlightening themselves, and kind of helping invest that knowledge back into our community here. So how are we doing in distance education? And so there's a few stats in here. You're seeing us, I'm trying to compare to the state, to SEDICA, which is our regional group for San Diego and Imperial County, and then all the way just to San Diego as a whole. This is a success rate from 2024 to 25, and this is the latest one we have reported to the Chancellor's Office through the MIS data. And we're looking at about 70.9% for our state. Again, our SEDICA region doing fairly all right at 70.5, and a little bragging point. But again, there's always more work to be done, but we are averaging around 73%. If I pulled the current numbers, we're about 74%. So that is, again, ticking up on, I believe, the right pathway to make sure our students are not only taking the courses, but they're successful. And I have some retention numbers as well, and those are looking positive. So our students are taking distance education courses. They are succeeding at a higher rate compared to our colleagues up and down the state. And so we are doing some good work across this field. And when I say we, a lot of faculty, a lot of student support, a lot of folks that you'll hear later about this ecosystem that we're able to hopefully provide to increase those numbers as we go, because we want our students to be successful here. Yeah.
What's our success rate for in class?
In class is, I want to say it was 77. I was looking at, yeah, 70, it should be 77, 78, right in there. And so how does this work for our students in different kind of ethnic groups? Again, you're looking at data that is spanning from 2020 to 2025. 2020 is, maybe I shouldn't have included it, but I'd like to give you a perspective, and we typically go back around 5 years. And so 2020 was an odd data year where success rates were through the roof. For online and for on ground. I think on ground was like 90% success rates at that time. Things have normalized in the 2021 to the now 2025 era. And you're seeing on the screen kind of how the different populations of our students are succeeding. Again, some have been doing quite well, and some are looking like they need some targeted assistance. And so we constantly review data, and we try and target and try and help our students out in different fields. And again, you'll hear a little bit later about how we're able to utilize this data so we can hopefully have an impact and try to change that course for any of these folks that are impacted, and especially heading in a not positive route here. But we do have quite a few groups, I think, that have been doing very well, and we've seen success rates typically growing across on the right-hand side for most of the groups here. I didn't put it in here, but our DSPS students are also succeeding at 1% to 2% higher rate in the online courses. And so as we're looking at our online courses and how information is presented, it is really an important piece of that universal design for learning and how our students are able to receive that information. So online, again, plays a role for different communities and different groups in helping them complete that goal. So another little fun chart for y'all, just taking our retention rate. So great, folks are succeeding, but are they actually finishing? Are we actually getting folks through the course and keeping them there? And so you're looking at the retention rate here. Again, it actually worked out into a nice line graph going upwards. And so again, we started in fall 2024. We're looking around 90%. I just pulled some numbers. It looks like we're at 91%, but I always like to confirm with our institutional research before I quote any of those other newer numbers. But we are on a higher rate for a lot of the retention. And so again, online students are starting to succeed at a higher rate. We're seeing the students stay and persist in those courses, which is wonderful. So it's not just they're taking it, they're able to proceed on and keep with that success. And it wouldn't be a slide without some student voices along the way. And so I put 3 quotes in here that I think exemplify some of the other quotes. A lot of them are around the same topic. I would say, read it out loud in your head, but I want to at least give some voice for those folks who may not be able to see what's happening on the screen. And so some of these quotes are just saying, hey, I've been out of school for more than 30 years, and it was easy to accomplish my educational goals with such amazing instructors. And this is a survey for distance education courses. So this is being pulled out related to those courses. This other student put, I have an autistic son. And once he's done for the day, I can put my pajamas on, appreciate that, and can concentrate on schoolwork. And I can get up at 3 a.m. I can do it in the middle of the day. And sometimes we go to the pool, sit there and do homework, and my son will get to swim. And so I'm really happy. I enjoy a good day like that, but it's showing the balance that is really important for a lot of these folks and how distance education can make that happen. And the last quote on this is that in the online environment, I have time to go back, read what was presented to me a couple of times, as opposed to being in the classroom and saying, well, we're running out of time. And so again, having that information consistently there is really important for our students. It's important that they have the time to go back for some of them, and this allows that opportunity for them.
Just
Yeah.
on the retention rate, we don't have any breakdown about whether. So this is across the entire district. That includes credit, non-credit.
Across the entire district for credit.
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 But we don't know, for instance, by subject, or we don't have any information that basically says, okay, this is driven by the high success rate in this versus.
Institutional research does a great job.
It's driven by high success rates, and I'm just talking about history, whereas in a technical field, that's not the case. So, but we don't have that data.
I can pull that data. Our institutional research folks are pulling that data. It gets long and it can get crossed in many different forms. And so we can pull out any of that data, especially if you're looking at certain groups. I'm happy to make sure you're able to get that data for it.
Well,
yes, the data is there. It's in a full report. Yeah.
Data in itself is useless without context. And so in this particular case, what the different rates are across the different campuses, the different kinds of classes. And we haven't even, gotten into whether the students are actually learning anything or just getting through the class. So something we'll talk about later.
Absolutely. Happy to. Yes. And so part of this all kind of comes together. So I'm talking about distance education. I'm talking about zero textbook cost and burden free now. And then hopefully you'll see how they all kind of combine together into helping our online and distance education courses. And really all courses benefit from the use of additional tools and features in there. And so this is what you're looking at is a mandate from our state chancellor's office to be burden-free for our students. And so what does that mean? They're looking at eliminating all instructional material fees for our students when they register for a course. And so how do we do that? Well, there's two ways, and usually it's powered by OER, if you happen to have heard of that. It's Open Educational Resources. This is kind of a new license that you can put onto materials that is called Creative Commons. The general gist of it is instead of that lovely copyright, which you may be familiar with, that I own it, you don't get to do anything with it unless I have a say in it, and then it's all protected. Creative Commons kind of opens up that into allowing folks to share, remix, adapt, and really kind of helps that academic freedom really thrive. And so Open Educational Resources with that Creative Commons allows faculty up and down the state to remix, to create materials, and to share those freely with others for them to adapt and customize it for their course. The idea of being able to pull those materials is that they're able to hopefully reduce the publisher fees, but still offering that high quality education of the resources that they vetted, either they've made or they've adopted and they've adapted into their course. And the goal of all of that is to make it, again, zero textbook cost for our students in here. With zero textbook cost, again, it is the idea that we can try and save money with OER and reduce that cost. However, we recognize some courses need the current, journal or needs the current book that they need to read for their class. And we absolutely support that. And so we are working with the bookstore and trying to get that funded at the bookstore, in the libraries as a resource for our students. So understanding the importance and the need of it in the classroom, but just trying to eliminate that fee for our students. So having the institution really pick up those costs and offering it for free for our students. So It's kind of a balance of recognizing academic freedom, but really the point is just to reduce that cost for students and having the institution pick up those costs for them. And so I'll go through a few stats with ZTC. And again, I have some items to share for you all. You've heard some savings across the district. I wanted to pull just this is spring 2026. So this is our current semester. It's just the classes that are labeled as zero textbook cost and low textbook cost. Low textbook cost for our district, we have defined as under $30. This matches with the state and ASCCC's definition of low cost for our students. And if you look at the savings, we get the average from the bookstore of what an average textbook would cost. I want to say Cities $56. I want to say Mesa's, around $54, and they're all there. We times those out by how many sections are not using a textbook cost to get this average number that you're seeing today. So based on the amount of sections that are LTC, so low textbook cost or zero textbook cost, we're able to start saying, hey, just that alone is saving our students $1.24 million this semester. And that's not accounting for all the wonderful work our librarians are doing. And you'll hear about Alma D and a few other textbook initiatives that they're doing to help build reserves and to help make that savings even higher for a lot of our folks here. So why are we worried about LTC or ZTC and OER and trying to give faculty back that academic freedom so that they don't have to use the publisher book and say, ignore chapter 5, and they can really make it adapted for the course? Our students are telling us they need this. 73% of our students are saying it's extremely important or very important for the material fees in their course and how it makes their decision to enroll in classes, how it takes their decision to finish those classes. And that's up from 63% in fall 2023. This survey has about that same 1,100 N. It was also conducted online for our folks here. So just to make note of that. And then we're seeing, again, the rates are even higher for our Black and Latinx students and how they're rating, again, the importance of all of the materials here. So a lot of our students are wanting to take classes. We have some of the lowest rates of classes in the country, which is phenomenal. But textbook fees, again, those aren't necessarily always low. And so we're trying to make our lowest cost for our course match that low cost for instruction material, or really burden-free and zero cost for them. And so how are our students doing in a zero textbook cost course versus a regular publisher course? Is there anything we can try and see in this data that says one's better or worse than the other, or honestly the same? In which case, in my opinion, if it's the same and the student didn't have to pay anything, I believe that's a win, right? For the student's success, and they didn't have to pay anything and they were able to customize it. And so we're able to see some of our stats in here. Again, certain groups, Pacific Islanders, they're succeeding at an 8% higher rate in ZTC courses. Our Latino students are increased 4% for them. Our Black students have gone up 2%. A lot of the other populations here are basically nil. And so just to make note of that, it does not seem like it's harming anyone, and it's benefiting quite a few of our student groups. And so again, coupled the increased success with that cost savings for our students and the ability for them, in my opinion, to reinvest those dollars locally instead of paying a publisher and somewhere else for that material, they can save that money, take more classes, reinvest in something they need, and buy groceries and all of the good things that we need to kind of keep going in here. And so Victor DeVore, or Dean DeVore, and a few others have done incredible work in helping upgrade our class search here at the district. And so now students are able to filter by ZTC and LTC at this point in time, which is wonderful. And so I was curious, do our students even know about this search? And so 30% of our students in the recent survey did say they're aware of the search. And this is up from 25% when we conducted this survey a year ago. Secretly, I'm doing it as part of the survey. So they also are like, what ZTC search? And so helping spread the news out there. There's a lot of campaigns going on across the colleges to help students be informed about this decision. And listing zero textbook cost search is part of our State Bill 1359. So we are required to list zero textbook cost in our class schedule. And I'm realizing I have some books to hand you all if you'd like to see them. So I'll try and pass them. Just give me 1 second here. And so for those online, I was able to borrow some books from City College Library. Thank you, City College Library. These books are all on reserve. And so what that means is our students can check them out. Sorry, I borrowed them for one day. I'll get them back this afternoon, I swear. And they're able to use that. So in lieu of purchasing the textbooks, I almost don't want to tell you, but 2 of these books are completely free online. And the other ones have $100 or $150 fee on it. And so again, I'd be curious, and you don't have to answer, if you can tell the difference between what a cost is for one of these books and what the free one is in there. And so the idea of this is really that OER and zero textbook cost has grown quite a bit, especially over the past 5 years. You're looking at large investments, and you'll hear a bit later about the $115 million from our state in producing high quality textbook instructional materials for faculty that they could adapt in any way that they see fit in their course to make sure it's successful for students. Question?
Way too many. So, so for example, if students are using a book that's in the library, are there enough copies for the student to check it out for the entire semester? These are all kinds of operational things that I don't think you have, but there's no question that for our students who have, where economics is a very big factor in whether they can participate in education and complete it, not having textbook costs is obviously great. It's like, we're going to provide housing. That's great. We can, help with food. And so those are all things that are given. No one's going to argue against that. The problem is that arises is when it's not facilitated by the institution. So example, bookstore has books and they can loan them to people. But the students still have to pay for it. They still have to loan it. Why don't the institution have the books and students can just check them out? That's just one example of where I think there's more questions about this than the obvious, which is students who don't have textbook costs it's easier for them to access education. Sorry.
No, that's the idea, is infusing. And we try to make OER is the idea is digital first. And so it should be able to be infused into, a Canvas classroom or provided to students on the first day of the class, which is also part of that success. Instead of students waiting, maybe typically trying to figure out, do I really need this textbook, and holding off, the instructor can be sure that that student has all the information they need on the first day of class. So they can get started and kind of proceed from there. So there's no question of access in there. But in terms of library and their loans, I know I talked to the librarians in our Student Textbook Affordability Committee. They are very keenly aware about how checkbook reserves happen and actively always trying to make sure they have enough supplies or enough additions for students to check out at any given time. You'll also hear a little bit about Alma D, which is a new software we have to allow sharing of textbooks across our credit colleges for students to check out wherever they may be. And so trying to help, again, bring things to be more accessible for our students, and no matter where they are or however they would like to get it. So trying to provide just multiple means of access for information really for our students here. And I'll just say the answer is the OpenStax book. So the 2 biggest books that have all the beautiful diagrams, those are actually free for our students to access online. If they want to buy a print edition, they're usually about $50, which is the cost of the materials really themselves. So just kind of a change of pace of how certain things are offered for folks here. And so just to give you a little idea of how students are finding these classes, there are, again, some labels in our class search for students to see it. And I can't thank everyone enough that worked on it. And so now all that work that faculty have done to reduce cost for their courses is being recognized in the class search, and students are able to figure out which one those are. We also, and just to make a plug for it, have a LEAF sustainability added in that filter search. And so there are a lot of new innovative things added to that. And so the sustainability is the one for students to find which courses are talking about the planet, the climate, and how to help, infuse that data into making it a better world for all of us. And so where are we in terms of ZTC and LTC, right? Are we already done across the district? Not quite. And so you're looking at a chart of our current offerings across the district. This is, again, the credit colleges, and I put in the bottom for CCE. Our College of Continuing Education is almost completely zero textbook cost across the district. And so this is really looking at the credit colleges and how they are able to transition into offering additional courses for the LTC, ZTC offerings. And you can see there's still room to grow. And so how do we help increase those ZTC and LTC things? Well, luckily, our state had put in $115 million to help every California community college. We were also the recipients of quite a bit of funding, especially at the credit colleges. This was not an opportunity for College of Continuing Education. So they didn't receive the money because they weren't eligible. So no, I just want to make note of that. It's not because they did not want it. Our colleges have received ZTC degree funds. And so what the state has done is said, great, we love these ZTC courses. We love these low textbook cost courses, but let's make degrees. Let's have that pathway be expected for the student to not have to pay any of those instructional materials. And so you're seeing what is on the screen here is up to $200,000 per degree is what the state has allocated as an option for folks. And again, our credit colleges did fairly well. They went out, they applied for it. Faculty and department chairs and deans have been doing incredible work in converting those courses. And you're seeing on the screen, again, the different pathways that they have applied for and are working on. There's, again, some wonderful things happening. And this information is being shared across the state. If the state recognized that one of our degrees, another college was doing it, the request was we had to partner with them to help develop those materials, to help make sure that we're sharing and continuing that conversation to help, again, reduce that cost. This is made by faculty. Faculty are the experts. They're working on it. What we really do is just provide that formatting, any of the other ancillary services of maybe researching, trying to figure out some of the data warehouses where all of this information is stored. And there's a bunch. There's, Merlot, there's LibreText, which you'll hear about later. There's archive.org, which you may also want to check out for anyone out there. They house a lot of that public domain thing. So again, a lot of this information is coming back into the public good, which is wonderful. And so we're able to utilize it and hopefully infuse it into our courses. And so Mesa's done a pretty great job at advertising their ZTC degree pathways, and City and Miramar are also right in there. I just only had room for one on there. So again, just recognizing they're all doing incredible work. And what this means is by 2027 and continuing on, we're going to have additional offerings for our students to take without expecting any instructional materials to be charged with that. There is a request now, and I heard it earlier, and that's a valid point of, I developed it. Well, next year I may want to modify it, or, the year after, and what's going to happen then? And so there's active group looking at just waiting until this current grant year is ending, and they are going to go to our state chancellor's office and ask for continued maintenance funding to allow faculty to keep developing, keep making sure that information is as current and as fresh as possible for our students. So again, the largest investment across the nation is happening here in California, and it's happening for our community colleges. And so it's really kind of a special opportunity for us and for our students and for our faculty to customize those materials that they want in their course and then offer it to them. And again, with the recognition that not everything could be zero textbook cost or OER. And so using some institutional funds to make sure we have those books or anything that may have a cost be reduced to zero for our students. So a little bit about ZTC, a little bit about DE. And so how do these things all come together? And they come together through a plethora of tools and support and initiatives that are all kind of shared to help lead and help move these things past just an idea and into practice. And so happy I put this as the first one. So this is that Alma D digital sharing. And so we're actively working with all the librarians across the district and working on trying to help offer those digital resources for our students, no matter where they are across. And so the librarians are scanning books. We're able to hold those books, and kind of a weird process, but I think it's good for folks to know, in a locked room. And once that book's in a locked room, then we can offer it online and check it out. And so that's how that copyright process works. The librarians are all going through right now, figuring out what their top checked out items are at their institution. We're cross-referencing that across institutions to figure out what we can target first and how to offer it. And again, once one college uploads one of those documents for that book, the other colleges and the other students can benefit from that. So this is really helpful, again, for our online students, but really any student that maybe needs to check out something at 1 a.m. or wherever time they're at. And so just really trying to expand how we offer it, still having the options for folks coming on campus, but again, just making sure our digital ecosystem is also supported across there. Don't want to forget our friends in DSPS. Again, this is partly very much helped by them and trying to make sure our digital content is not only offered online, but it's accessible for our students, especially as we're talking about screen readers and looking at all that content. And so it's just a really nice partnership across the librarians, across our system to really identify the need for our students and offer it in a logical manner. So a little bit of a fun one. Oh yeah, sorry.
I have a comment. So I have a library card from probably 3 other counties,
Nice.
and I can go in and download a book. Some places, they put me on a wait list because they have 50 copies and all 50 are checked out, and I have to wait till somebody turns it in. And so is that what this is?
Yeah, so for the previous one, I forgot the hours, but they're allowed a certain amount of hours and then it auto checks it back in for the next person and then it kind of keeps rotating from there. So yeah, it gives everyone a little bit of a shared opportunity. And I think it's the reason it's not multiple days or weeks is to give every student a little opportunity to still access those items and actively seeing if a lot of folks are checking it out, then expanding the options and amount of it. So that way there's not a waiting list. So folks that need that information.
Yes. Very useful.
Happy to answer or
Go on. There's just so many questions. I don't even know where to start.
okay. One other, again, I thought it'd be nice to kind of go from the big picture all the way kind of down to the fun ones in there. And so we presented to the student government and we had some good interest from them. And so we're launching a bookmark campaign to help recognize zero textbook cost efforts across the district. We're asking students right now to submit their design per college and to create a bookmark. It is student developed, or can't be AI, has to be student drawn. And so we're running this competition. There's a prize of some funds that they get and also recognition. And at the end, we're hoping to have one bookmark from each college campus, and then we're going to print it and distribute it for free as kind of a promotional item. And so trying to recognize all of the work that faculty are doing, students are asking for. We have resolutions from students asking to help please reduce those textbook costs. And so just kind of a fun project that I thought, if any of you are readers out there, we may have some custom bookmarks for you soon. So kind of excited about that. And if you want, I see a lot of you have your laptops open. Again, how does this data work? And for ZTC, like how do we even know which courses that we want to target and what has the most impact? And so if you would like, you can go to the ztctracker.com with the note, again, we are bringing this all in-house. And so that data is going to be slightly older with the idea of us all moving to Power BI. If you go to ZTC Tracker, you're going to see that we sliced and diced that data in every single way. And so it looks at, hey, are you going to be a CSU transfer? Which one of those courses are required? Which one of those courses are ZTC? And then, are you a department? Well, great. In your department, which courses are already ZTC? What's the percentage? And so this was really beneficial, especially as you heard about that funding earlier from the state. They were saying, well, who wants to do ZTC? And a lot of folks were like, well, where do we even have zero textbook costs? How do we start? Who's close? Who's interested? And so this was really wonderful for a lot of departments. And this was seeded with funding, again, from the state chancellor's office at first. We ended up picking the funding up, and then now we're bringing it in-house. But it's really wonderful, and it's a great conversation for a lot of our department chairs, our deans, to figure out where we can have the best impact for our students and that degree pathway. So trying to get them through our system, again, with the minimal amount of instructional materials required. You're welcome to check it out. If you have questions on that dashboard, please let me know. Again, with the caveat that data is now not being updated on the tracker, but we are moving it in-house.
I'm wondering what IGETC is.
IGETC. So that is the transfer pathway for our students. I believe that is being updated with a new terminology, but it's the idea of what is required from our students in our courses to be able to transfer out into a CSU system. Yeah, great question. And so other ecosystems that are helping us, again, you heard about ZTC, DE. LibreVerse is something that was just funded across our state system. They won the RFP bid for it. And so what does LibreText do? LibreText is created initially as kind of a repository for faculty to upload their OER, so their open educational resources for others to download, adapt, and go from there. Well, they've expanded over the years, and so they also offer other programs such as Adapt, which is a free online kind of a check for understanding, kind of a little homework system. That way, we are able to now compete with publishers. That was the big draw for a lot of times is faculty were saying, great, I've converted my materials, but now I'm missing out on some of these ancillaries, these check for understandings, these interactive systems. Well, thankfully, again, with this agreement in the state, we have access to Adapt, which otherwise would have been $15 per student. Our faculty have it for free. Our students have it for free. We're able to embed that in Canvas. And so now faculty who want not only the OER, ZTC course, they're also able to help infuse different tools into their course to make that understanding a little bit easier or to allow different check for understandings. And so this LibreText ecosystem is funded as of last month for the next 5 years. And so we are working now to help faculty see what resources are in there, see what they're interested in. And we also offer workshops constantly to try and get folks to understand how these tools may be beneficial in their course. And again, depending on their interest, completely optional, but just letting them know what resources are out there. And the last one is the remixing tool. The idea is, again, the state has invested so much money in there that we want to have the ability to pull that data and remix it. So faculty from across the system, for example, sociology, have developed countless documents of information for faculty to pull from. And so the remixing tool allows faculty to take different chunks from different spots and remix it into one logical pattern for students to experience. So instead of students having to go to this link here, go find out this link here, it brings it all into one shop, which is the idea of that universal design for learning and embedding it directly into that experience for our students. And yeah, on the right-hand side, you're seeing a crossword puzzle. It's one of the examples of the Adapt homework system in there. So again, trying to make education part of the informative thing and also a little bit of play. So that way they can try and showcase what they've learned throughout the process. All right. And students coming here, we thought it was a fun term called the SPOT. So students coming in, we try to encourage our students to take the SPOT course. It's our student prep for online training. Our students do get to receive a digital badge once they complete it, which they can show their instructor. This is completely optional, but it really allows our students to get an experience of what an online course could look like. We walk through how to submit an assignment. We walk through what a course typically, again, has with modules. That way students on that first day of class aren't necessarily walking in and, or digitally entering into that system and saying, what is happening? And so this gives that familiarity. It also covers a lot of other important aspects of online. Again, knowing the system is one thing, time management, absolutely critical, especially if you're fully online, making sure you have your own pacing. And so it incorporates a lot of these other concepts to make sure our students are prepared and ready to take these online courses. And now, thanks to IT and a few other folks, we now have students into our Canvas course prior to that 2-week period. And so we're able to give resources like this even earlier as students register instead of, right closer to their enrollment date.
I have a question. How does it determine if they're prepared to take an online course?
So it is self-paced. And so we have questions at the end where it asks them to identify where they would find certain features, how they would, manage that time, what techniques are in there. And then once they complete that quiz at a certain standard, I want to say 80%, they'll automatically receive that digital badge. It takes about an hour and a half for students to go through. So not a big course, but the idea of, again, just the brief fundamentals, but it's a self-paced course with a quiz that automatically assigns it. And you're seeing on the right-hand side, that is the digital badge that students get. And so that lives with them. And if an instructor asks for that, we try to encourage extra credit. They're able to present that digital badge and that stays with them in their account. So here's that ecosystem we're worried about. The idea of a lot of these tools is to make it so it is an interactive experience, it is an accessible experience, and it is a secure experience. And so these tools that you're looking at here all go through our vetting process with IT, with DSPS, with contracts and procurement. Not to get too far in the weeds, but they're checking accessibility, they're checking security. And once all those metrics are passed, we're able to infuse that into our digital environment with the idea that we have contracts, we have security in place with agreements. And so that way our students can interact in those environments without, being concerned about going to an offsite application that isn't managed or controlled by the college or district, in which case it becomes hard to track, hard to have that agreement, especially if it's not tied in with the district. And so what you're looking on the screen again is that ecosystem of support, and it all ties in with that middle icon. The middle icon is Canvas. That is our current learning management system. The idea is we're trying to make it a one-stop experience for students to reduce that cognitive load of what tool do I need to go to? Am I checking Teams? Am I checking my phone? Am I checking my email? Where do I go for this information? And we really are trying to make that a seamless experience. You're seeing across the board, again, different tools for video engagement. So how do we use Zoom to interact with our students? You're seeing Studio, which allows interactive videos. So it has quizzes embedded in it. It could have comments so students can chat on the video in different topics. Of course, Office 365 and the main suite. That way our students can submit all their productivity tools in there. And then on the bottom left is Pope Tech. And so these are accessibility tools to where we are able to have faculty scan their courses and see if there's any identified accessibility issues. And you'll hear later about some support teams that we have to help folks understand accessibility and help, again, improve their courses. So that way every student can understand what they're trying to say. So that's the main point of accessibility.
Are students, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Are students paying for these databases that are connected to Canvas, like Office 365 and Zoom?
All free for our students. So these are all institutionally funded or funded by the state if it's like Canvas in certain aspects.
And so any student has access to 365. It's not just in the classes where they're learning how to use it.
Great. Every student, once they're registered in a course, they have access to, yes, Office 365.
And how do they access that? Do they have to put in their student ID? So.
Correct. Their student email and their password. Gets
Okay.
them in there.
And so is it single sign-on?
Correct. Yeah. All these are able to be accessed in our single sign-on system.
But if the student's not enrolled in classes, they lose access to all of this, or how does that, if a student
After
takes
3 semesters of non-attendance,
Okay.
then I believe their account is reduced to kind of a holding account, and they would lose access to a lot of this. It's 3 semesters is my current knowledge of that.
Takes about a year to.
And some of these do these site licenses allow for multiple logins? I'll give you my experience. I have a laptop, I have a desktop, I have a phone, and I have this computer, right? And when I log on to the Adobe site, I can only be logged on to 2 of them at one time. So is there a limitation for that?
I think Adobe is the only one that has that limitation. Every other one, I think
Well, that doesn't surprise me.
Yes. Every other one you can single sign on with multi-factor, again, trying to make sure that we know who you are when you authenticate. But yeah, all of these are free. Bottom one is actually NetTutor. It's an online tutoring system. We appreciate our colleges and their tutoring is fantastic. What this does is if the colleges isn't open or they're not available or open, let's say at 2 a.m, they can turn on NetTutor for our students to access that service so they can still get support.
So that's live tutoring?
Live person, yes.
And where does the data go about the students? I mean, they're obviously interacting over the, in the cloud. So where does the data on those students go? Do any of these companies collect that data to determine, any of that information?
I'd have to look at each individual, but generally our agreements say they can collect and use it to interact with that student, right? They need to know who you are and then they can pass that along. Typically, all of our agreements say that data is ours. You should not train on that data. And so really that data should be locked down for all intents and purposes, except for the purpose of proceeding with that interaction to make sure that they know who you are and they can vet that.
There's a big difference between should and must.
Our contracts say they must. So yeah, maybe that's a better way to put it. Yes.
And that includes taking the data and removing all of, because some of the arguments of these large
Language
corporations that collect data, including mine, is that they remove any identifiers. That's included. We don't allow them to use our data for anything.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the idea. It should be, anonymized when possible, and then they should not collect and store our data for ongoing purposes.
Okay.
They must not change that. Yes. Sorry. And again, these are our ecosystems. The idea of these, again, we run them through, I heard earlier, technology committee. We also have a distance education steering committee that I help chair. In that committee, we do review software with faculty. So for example, this last round, we reviewed a communication tool, which is Pronto on the screen. And we also reviewed Turnitin, for example. And faculty decided to move to Plagiarism Checker. And so we run constant checks on, at least for distance education, we try to make sure absolutely faculty are involved. They're the ones who are going to be using that system. We try to make sure it's not just a flashy tool, but it has some pedagogic basis in there and helping students be successful. And so that is constantly done with Distance Education Steering Committee in trying to recognize these tools and also with AI features. So for example, Canvas is currently expanding their offerings and trying to incorporate AI, of course. And so all of those tools, before they're enabled, we bring that to that DDES committee. We check with faculty if this is of interest. Typically, we leave a lot of those features as an opt-in basis. And so a lot of times after we get the okay, we usually turn it on as an opt-in. So faculty would still need to go in, enable that feature if they so desired. But there are some checks along the way because we do want to make sure things aren't just infused in the environment. We're able to talk about what's in the environment. We're able to support what they're doing in there. And so there is kind of a little bit of a slowdown, especially now with a lot of these tools and corporations. For example, one recently was a product, it was a smart search tool in Canvas. It just allowed faculty to search their files in Canvas, and Canvas renamed it to AI. And so we heard all about it from a lot of folks. And again, it's the same feature that it was, but we always make sure that it is vetted through the faculty so they know what feature is coming. We did not have control over that name change though. So that one did catch us by surprise, but we try our best to bring everything as much as possible to the group for vetting and verification that we're on the right track, right? We're here to support the faculty and the students, and that's our goal. So there is AI. Can't get away with this without talking about AI somewhere in here. And so the state chancellor has provided 2 AI platforms for instructional purposes. Those are Nectar and PlayLabs. And so this is free. This also has, all the SOC 2. They don't train on our data. Our data is ours, and so it stays there. It is a nice way for folks who are curious about trying AI in their courses. And this is a different style of AI. This allows really the faculty to remain in control of that information. And so to give you an example, if you've chatted with AI, and I imagine at this point, many of us have, it sometimes hallucinates. And we are aware, how do we trust the data? Where do we go from there? With these 2 systems, faculty can choose what data they want in that AI. And so they can upload their textbook, especially if it's OER and zero textbook cost. They can just load it right in there. They can load their documents, their handouts, and say to that AI, only reference these documents when students are chatting with you. And there's a wizard that says, well, how do you want students interacting with me? And so the instructor can say, of course, please don't give the answer, but walk them through the process of how to find that answer. And so there's different techniques and different platforms now that aren't just this wild west of, ChatGPT, are they on Gemini and just going out in the world? And we don't control that data because we don't have an agreement with those companies in that data. This provides us with that agreement, with those protections, and with those guardrails that are so important for our students, especially as they are interacting with AI and trying to figure out, again, is that information accurate? And the best way to do that is to have the instructor help build that for the student to make sure it's there. The other benefit that we're seeing is, again, for those that have enabled it, it's on the screen, but I'll say it out of curiosity. what do you think the top interaction time is for these AI bots? And it's not during class time, right? They're looking at these AI bots. The highest rate right now is Sunday at 10 p.m. And so my initial thought is, well, they're probably getting ready for that assignment due on Monday and want some kind of feedback along the way. And so again, not to replace anyone, absolutely, but it could give them that little bit of information that helps them finish that task and then work with the instructor on making sure it's all complete from there. Instructors also have the ability to say, I want to see every chat in there. And so as students are chatting, it will let the student know, hey, this is going to be shown to your instructor. Could be beneficial for some of those instructors. And there's also the option to make it anonymous or just not seen by the instructor, which is also a nice technique, especially if you have that sillier question that you may not want logged or tracked. Again, this is completely flexible, completely on the faculty's choice if they want to enable it, but we are pushing out workshops and support just for those that are interested in trying tools like this. So speaking of bots, I made one. Why not? It's about that time. And so we're called Nav. Why not? Nav is my DE and ZTC bot for you all. If you would like, you're welcome to take a screenshot and check out this bot. This bot is loaded with our ZTC, with our DE information in there. And so should be mostly accurate. Always verify and check. Please check with me afterwards. But the idea of this bot, it's here to help you. So if you have questions, and I did not dive into that data as specific as maybe I would have liked to, or if you have questions, please check with a chat bot. See how Nav finds that data. It'll also let you know where that data lived in the resource that was uploaded. So it's not just like, hey, I gave you this data. It looks great. It's, hey, I gave this data, and here is where I found this data, which is the important element of that cross-check and making sure it's a validated research item in there. And so we're experimenting. We're trying new and different innovative things to try and, again, provide information and access. And that's really our goal, is to communicate. We want folks to understand what the data is. And sometimes creating a bot could also help illuminate that data. And again, you are welcome to chat with it. I think I made it anonymous, so I won't see what you're saying in there, but you can ask it different questions and see, and it should remain on topic. I told it, you don't know anything besides ZTC and DE. So, only concentrate on those items. You can try and stump it, please. Let me know how it goes, but it should try and stay on task. And this is just an example of what, again, some faculty, if they so desire, could infuse into their course to try and help, again, enhance that experience with a tool that may help a student at 10 o'clock at night on Sunday. Also hearing about quite a few folks that are using it as a resource, just to peer check. And so as folks are writing essays, again, using it to get feedback and then keep continuing to write that essay. We're having some faculty who are saying, well, show me the prompt that you used. And then how did that answer your question, or did it not answer your question? So there's a lot of cool and different techniques we're experimenting and helping support folks along here. Any questions? Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I haven't used ChatGPT a lot, but I mean, I give it, isn't this like that?
Yes, it's a large language model that's tied in, again, with data points that I've loaded in. So hopefully it's accurate, and some guardrails to say, hey, you only know about this data, so please don't, sidetrack into some other conversation.
Thank you.
So. I figured I'd just give you a minute to play. I wasn't sure. Yeah. And I think that's really where we're trying to encourage folks, is to play. The idea of playing is fun, and we learn when we play. And so getting to see the tool, I think, is really helpful. Yeah, and this data is secured. So again, I felt comfortable using it because it's part of our ecosystem. And that's really what we're trying to get at here, is we're not trying to expand the tools into everything. We're really trying to be thoughtful and how we infuse the tools, and also how it integrates with the rest of the experience. Because as maybe some of you experience, we have the small screen we use, we have our medium screens we use, we have our large screen. And so how do I find what I'm looking for? And we're trying to make it into a digital ecosystem, so that way students know exactly where to go. And single sign-on, thank you, IT, has truly helped with that, because now all the systems can truly tie in together with one login instead of being piecemealed out. just keep going along the way, or unless there's any questions, or give it a moment. Yeah. And so we're also looking at how we keep up to date in our information. And so at San Diego Community College District and any other community college district, there is requirements before you teach a distance education course. And so that requirement here is going through the Online Learning Pathways online faculty certification program. And once you complete that, that is the metric that allows you to then to teach in a distance education modality. As you saw before 2020, we had everyone teaching online. And so we certified a bunch of folks, actually close to, I think, 1,300 faculty across that time. And so it was a big lift. And thank you to the Online Learning Pathways team, DSPS, online faculty mentors, everyone really pitched in to make that work. Well, now we've noticed, again, some faculty went through that training 5 years ago, sometimes 6, 7, 10 years ago. And so we're offering now a completely optional renewal course. We tried to take it from the DMV. I know DMV, but they had a good term of renewal, so we kept with that. And the idea of this course is a 3-hour course for our faculty just to hear about the latest and greatest and tools that we have available on the last screen, what the current regulations and procedures are, and really just some of those best practices to keep them going. And so again, we're recognizing that a lot of folks have gone through our training and we're excited, but we want to make sure folks stay as current as possible. And so we're trying to develop, and we now are able to offer, I'm excited, this renewal course for faculty who may just want a refresher of kind of what the current best environment is. So how does this all happen? This is my favorite part. It's the people, and it's all the people that I'm hopefully trying to represent up here, because it takes a village of folks in here. And so we have some wonderful folks, and I think one may be online for the online faculty mentor, that help us kind of really understand what faculty are needing, what the colleges are specifically needing. And so we have online faculty mentors. There's one at each one of the colleges. We meet regularly on an ongoing schedule every semester, and they're kind of our eyes and ears and feedback, and we're also giving feedback. And so it's a beautiful partnership where we get to, again, talk about what's going on, how we can best support faculty across the district. And these are truly the superstars across of each college campus. And again, I think we have Professor Gum online. I'm not sure, Dan, if I could, I think she may present, if that's okay, if we can switch it on to her. Or I can ask the board, or who do I need to ask? Or,
I do that.
oh, thank you. Appreciate that.
What was her name?
It should be Eileen Gum or Professor Gum.
I am promoting her to a panelist at this time.
Thank you.
She should now be able to, yes.
So thank you for allowing us this time to share a little bit. I think Jean Weston has the slides, and Professor Meduli Williams is also online. Just a couple of things that I'd like to highlight for City. We are piloting a program to review online courses and provide support for faculty, in particular for RSI, meaning regular and substantive interaction, or in short, just humanizing the courses and making sure that faculty are providing regular and significant interaction with their students, faculty, student, teacher initiated, and that students can expect or know what to expect from their faculty member and how to reach out and how their faculty are reaching out to them. So we're in our second semester of doing that. We pull 5% of the 100% online courses. And so we have about 12 courses this semester to review. The faculty members are given a brief form where they can highlight what types of RSI they would like us to look at. And then we can also give them feedback. They have 2 opportunities to ask questions or get some clarification. And then we review the courses, and then we meet back with the faculty if they need some support or if they need help. Or some of the courses are fabulous. We have some poker trained faculty, and those courses are usually a cut and above all the other courses. We also have expanded hours for our on-campus remote testing site. So faculty who have online courses but want their students to take their exams or assessments in person, they can schedule with our testing center. We also have a significant number of select sessions devoted to how to teach digital literacy, AI, discussing ways to kind of flip your course so that the process is highlighted rather than product, because AI can't really fake the process. So those are some of the things that we've been working on. And then I can pass it to Denise if no one has any.
Thank you, Arlene. I think Denise may be joining for the accessibility mentor portion of it.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Yeah. And then, so yeah, again, colleges are all doing some incredible work. Just to highlight again for Mesa, they're piloting Perusal. It's a social annotation tool. So it's, imagine looking at a website and allowing all your students to comment directly on that website. And so it really is that interactive tool. A lot of folks are saying a way to also balance it with AI. And so just a different technology. Mesa, this is being pushed or helped supported by Mesa, and they're trying to also encourage the other credit colleges and our College of Continuing Education to join. They are working through a little bit of a MOST reduction. That's their online success team, and they're trying to balance some of that support. But in exciting news, they have a new instructional designer certificate, which I'm really happy. And those instructional designers are who we have on our team. And so we're trying to figure out if there's some partnerships and some internships that we can do to help support those students going through that. Miramar is doing some wonderful recognition of faculty across their campuses, highlighting what they're doing to help support students, which is wonderful. And they're doing a ton of flex events and really trying to help with that professional learning. And College of Continuing Education just hired their new instructional designer not too long ago. So welcome aboard, Anna Geet. We're happy to have you here. And they're also working on City Lab. So again, a lot of these online faculty mentors are our eyes and ears on the ground. They're helping infuse that technology. They're helping promote and helping encourage us to check out what they're interested in. And so it's a wonderful partnership between the colleges and the district to kind of stay connected, have that communication channel open, so that way we can adjust according to their needs. And thank you, Professor Gum. I appreciate that. And so the next one, hi, Denise. This is you, if you'd like.
Sure. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for giving me a moment to speak about being an online accessibility faculty mentor. I've been supporting the Miramar faculty and the district faculty with this for the past, I believe, 4 years. And it's a really wonderful collaboration. We work with the district office, but then we do workshops to support faculty, professionals, students, administration in bringing in accessibility from the very beginning. And I think it might have started with the idea that it would support online faculty only, but it has become something that has supported everyone across our college and district in terms of email communication, social media, student services, flyers, and as well as Canvas accessibility for everyone teaching in all modalities, not just online, but hybrid, HyFlex, as Dean Weston mentioned, and our in-person classes. So, for example, just in the past few weeks, my fellow mentors, Johanna, Chris, Tucker, and I have done workshops on Canvas accessibility basics, alternative text, social media and Instagram story accessibility, PowerPoint accessibility, as well as the district office has online drop-in hours on Zoom and in person, so people can get support, kind of over-the-shoulder support when you're looking at your computer and trying to figure out how to do this. We have also been supporting the college and district through the accessibility capability maturity model. We just went through an entire series of interviews from the chancellor's office last month, and we're really looking forward to seeing how our college and district has been doing so that we can continue this work. I'll just say that on my end, I have really enjoyed learning more about accessibility, supporting my college and the district in this. What I find so rewarding is that faculty, staff, students, professionals, everyone wants to do the work. We want to make sure that everything we do is inclusive and equitable and everyone's learning and doing the best we can. And these are the kind of programs that we need so that we can really support faculty, because when we support faculty, we support all of our students. Thanks so much.
Beautifully said. Thank you, Professor Maddie Williams. And they have been instrumental. Again, the idea is we're offering materials like flyers, for example, but we want to make sure the person on the other end understands that material. And so this work is absolutely critical in making sure that all that beautiful things that we create and push out, that the folks on the other side actually are able to comprehend and understand it. So it's an important factor. It sounds simple, but it's a good lift, and it's a great educational experience for a lot of folks. And again, it's an ongoing effort as we learn about different tools and different techniques to make things a little bit better and easier for folks. There's even some experimentation with AI and different bots and how to perhaps use that to help expedite that process to make documents accessible for all of us. So this is really the slide I want. It takes a village. So again, I'm up here, but it's everyone. And so you're just seeing one person, and there's hundreds and hundreds of other folks that are helping make all of this happen. And so I just want to, again, thank you to the instructional designers at all the colleges, all Online Learning Pathways team in the back. Thank you. You can put a little snapshot of them. Again, it's accessibility mentors, it's the online faculty mentors, it's the research department helping us, it's IT, it's student services, and again, it's everyone. So distance education isn't just one person out there trying to make something happen. It's committees, it's reviews, it's everyone getting together and trying to figure out what's best for our faculty and our students to be successful here. And so again, I just wanted to send a thanks to everyone out there, because again, this wouldn't be possible without everyone. And that's the idea, is that we're all in this together to help out our students. And so with that said, why do we collect all the data? It's so we can have better informed decisions. And just to give you a little sneak peek of why and how we collect that data, it's called XB12. Again, the idea of that is just a reporting to our state chancellor's office of how well we're performing in different metrics. The state chancellor's office has changed those metrics because they want to be better informed of what we're doing. And so they've recently updated the XB12 for zero textbook costs. So they're trying to figure out, is it really zero textbook costs? And if it is, how is it zero textbook costs? Is it OER? Is it because the college or the district has put in funding for that? And so they're really trying to hone in on exactly how this support is happening. And so we've gone, thankfully, again, we have great partners with the bookstore, with everyone across the campuses, and trying to refine forms and how faculty are reporting that information, and how the bookstore is able to calculate, what is a low textbook cost, and then get that infused so we can let the state chancellor's office know how we're doing in that. And that also helps us inform our Power BI tracker or that ZTC tracker that you saw before. So all this data is not only good for the state, it really helps us understand exactly how we're offering those courses and where those materials are coming from. Speaking of data, there's also clarification of modalities coming from our state chancellor's office. They are on a roll lately. And so as you heard way earlier in this presentation, we have some modalities, HyFlex, we have some partially online. HyFlex was never a category in the system. And so as you can imagine, every college, every district did it a little bit differently, which is not good when we're trying to start to compare how we're doing relative to each other, how we're doing even internally. And so the state is saying, let's clean this data up. And so they're looking at, again, making sure we're accurately reporting and basically splitting up into two categories. What's the methodology? Is it a lecture? Is it a lab? Is it tutoring? And then what modality is it? So that's the modalities you heard earlier. Is it partially online? Is it HyFlex? Or is it in person? So really trying to drill into that data, which will, again, help inform these data sheets that you're getting to be a little bit more accurate and a little bit more precise for us. And that's coming summer 2027. So we're excited, but depending on who you are, you may be less excited if you have to do a lot more programming. So good data, but also a lot of work to get us to that point. And also our learning management system. So it collects quite a bit of data. And so that data sits there and it is just kind of invisible to a lot of folks. We are trying to actively pull that data out to help benefit us, to help benefit faculty, to understanding their outcomes in Canvas, to helping us understand when are students logging into Canvas. How are they logging into Canvas? Is it with a mobile device? And so, for example, we've redesigned some of our courses to be mobile friendly in light mode and in that dark mode, because we saw that there's some different nuances there. So data-informed decision is where we like to be. And we are able to start pulling some of that data, especially in our Canvas learning management system, to help inform how we offer what workshop, what tools are folks using. And then we can also, again, it helps with accreditation. So when accreditation comes around and says, hey, let me see those courses when it's in Canvas, that transparency is easy to kind of turn over to make sure that we are doing everything proper so we can stay accredited and keep offering our wonderful services. So trying to use data, again, in a logical fashion to help us again, be successful, not to sell our data or get out, but we should utilize our own data that we collect. And that's where a lot of the initiatives are now, is trying to illuminate that data that's kind of invisible behind the scenes. So some future plans. And again, I'd love to hear from all of you what you'd like for us to do or like for us to see. We really are trying for that digital accessibility for all. That is one of the great kind of focuses for us. Again, making sure folks have the data, they understand the data is so critical. We're working on a thing called Peer Online Course Review. It's POCR, the idea of faculty helping review other faculty's courses and reviewing it with a rubric that the state has produced with faculty involvement. We're looking at digital first material. So that's a whole burden-free. We really want students to have the material on the first day of class. It is very important for their success. And so how we get there, again, could be OER. It could be us purchasing a textbook for a faculty member, but either way, we are trying to get it so students have that information readily available when they start their class, hopefully a day or two before, at least too. And then we're exploring some different things, especially as we talk about AI. You're starting to see some different things where it's customized. And so having the ability, for example, if a student needs additional support in something, can we make a custom experience for them? Can we customize our textbook so that way a textbook doesn't say, you know, how long does it take you to shovel a snow in the driveway, but instead it says, how long does it take you to get to in and out and back in time, right? So we can really kind of localize and customize our material. And then, of course, looking into XR, which is that whole idea of augmenting our reality. We're seeing it for sure in a lot of our CTE courses, our career tech courses, and how we can augment with different glasses. We can augment with a whole virtual reality. We're seeing it with some other technologies like Dreamscape. And we're seeing a lot of successes in, again, infusing different technologies to really illuminate the points or the information that the instructor is trying to deliver for students and all the brilliant ideas that you have. And so that's where I am. We are excited for the future. We are working on different technologies. Our real main concern is pedagogy. We want the tool not to be shiny, flashy. We want faculty to say, hey, this is actually useful for my students. And for me, it saves either time or it helps with success rates. We want to make sure our data is secure and localized. And that's a big push right now. We're really not trying to feed these data centers. We are trying to keep our data localized and for us. And so again, we're concentrating on our digital ecosystem and making it as robust as possible. So that way we can make our best informed decisions for our faculty and students. Thank you. Yeah, questions or comments? Or yeah.
I can add just a couple of things. Thank you, Dean Weston. Very well done in presenting a lot of information in a very organized and understandable way. I appreciate the work you put into that. For Trustee Milgram, while we were sitting here, I went and pulled our dashboard. And for this spring, just to give you some examples of online versus in person and how much this varies by subject area. Biology, we have 162 fully in-person classes, only 8 that are fully online. And what you can compare with English, where there are 162 fully in-person and 144 online. So it does vary significantly, both by the decisions of faculty on the best way to offer the course and students self-selecting into the modality that's going to serve their learning needs. Similarly, with ZTC or low textbook cost adoption, for example, in biology, only 6% of the courses are using zero textbook cost, but in communications, it's 27%. And so again, the appropriateness of the tool to the subject being taught and student learning, I think is largely behind faculty choice and student choice and what they're enrolling in.
Thank you. Go ahead, Maria. Yeah, I was thinking about what Craig raised before, that to some degree this was self-selected by students who already do online. And I was wondering, is there any way to expand the survey by doing something like, say, giving students in class the surveys so they can fill them out right there? And that way we can get some sense of people who don't primarily use online or who may or may not primarily use online. That's we don't know. But while they're in person class.
I love that. I'm going to work with our research folks and see kind of what options we may have to expand that search. And I know we're always cognizant of survey overload, but I'm happy to work with them to expand it, because I do believe we want a better pulse on the entire environment, not just the online survey takers.
Great.
I just say great minds because that was one of the items.
Okay.
I always wondered why people didn't come into my class to do the surveys rather than just try to, most surveys online I feel are self-selecting, people who have time to do them, they do them. Otherwise they don't. It's been a long time since I've been in the classroom. So, it's nice to see that there's a lot more materials and a more of a well-developed ecosystem for faculty. Because when I started putting materials online in '94, I developed everything on my own, and there was, I was delivering it through, browsers and, that kind of thing, and email and whatever it happens to be. And the one thing I learned about it, and I don't know how faculty deal with it today, and that is, it's one thing to have students possess or have access to information, completely different if they actually know and understand it. I always give the example is students in my biology majors class had met several of them taken research writing and gotten an A. And when I asked them to do basic critical thinking paper, they had no idea what to do. I listened to a story today about at Columbia, they did a survey because they were in their basic economy class that a lot of the students who are in that field take. And while the students did all the homework and they did all the reading, when they were asked to actually use the material in a evaluation setting, they couldn't do the simplest thing, which in this case was, identify the supply and demand curve. So I think we have a long way to go in terms of validating how students are doing. Is there any attempt to collect data on how students do, not necessarily ours, but it would be great if it was ours, how they do when they move on to other institutions? So if I was a biology teacher, so I never really had data. The only way I knew how my students did was they would write to me. So is there any ability, and I'm looking back at the corner of my eye at Michelle because she's back there, but is there any efforts to try and track any other data about how students who use different levels of online learning and how they compare to students that don't?
Yeah, I know of only the CTE, and that's not looking at success, that's looking at earnings and how that
Right.
progresses afterwards. I am not familiar with any surveys or any information where it links how students in one system move to another system. I just don't, I'm not aware, but I love the idea of it.
Yeah, it's a big missing piece of this to know. I know, Greg, we talked about this because you did the ASU lab, where this is a biology lab that was a virtual reality lab. And the big question I had is, okay, well, if I take a student who learned how to use X piece of equipment in a virtual reality lab, and then they go into a lab and they have to use the equipment, can they do it? And, again, there's no information on that. And I don't know, because that gets into the anecdotal where a lot of professors will say, well, I've talked to students and they have a lot of trouble in online education. And they feel like that's their only option because they couldn't get in to a regular traditional class, or their schedule didn't permit it. So they're sort of like self-selected again into online learning because that's the only option that they can have. And I'm afraid there's a good amount of equity issues that are involved in that as well. Let's see, I'm just looking because most of this is just me spouting off.
Mary Chu has a point.
Okay, well, I appreciate this. It's nice to know. Again, I haven't used Canvas since 2020, and I used it for a while before COVID, but then I was like, put under the gun and had to use it completely, and it was okay. there was no way, you had to completely rethink assessment because students have access to everything. So you can't do assessment in a traditional way. So do you know of any of what we're doing in terms of online learning and how assessment is done so that it is not, barring those really awful programs that watch students and, that sort of thing. Do we address the issue of how to do assessments that are for students, for students in general, but, unless they're in a classroom and you're giving them a test, you can't control what they access. So when they're at home, what.
I will say, so we do not, from the district, we don't have any proctoring services that we support. And so there are some programs that are required to do it for nursing. And so they use those proctoring. And so that is a big conversation. And a lot of us are working on that and helping, trying to support faculty. Of course, you may have heard of authentic assessment and that whole term in there, or project-based learning. And so we are looking at, again, different approaches and trying to meet faculty where they are in their classroom. But yeah, some questions are just differently answered now, especially with access to different tools. And so we're working on trying to redevelop some of those assessments to try and, again, make it more authentic or make it more of a project versus, a matching one in there. But it's not always applicable for every course. And so we're working on, again, different approaches of low stake tests and trying to check for understandings and outcomes. But it is definitely a shift of paradigm for a lot of instructors, especially with how we're teaching and what access to information, especially with AI and the different tools, like we have information at our fingertips. And so what are we assessing and what are we trying to figure out for the outcome? And that's part of a larger picture where we're using Canvas and outcomes to try and, again, make sure that they are understanding what's in that course, they're meeting those outcomes, and those are all starting to be infused into Canvas, which has a new outcomes feature that we're working with research to then pull up into dashboards. So it's a few different moving parts of changing assessment for some classrooms and trying to reimagine it, and then also using those outcome data to, again, try and validate that learning has occurred in there.
We're building the plane as it's flying over the city with no TSA agents, right? So what? Yeah, exactly. So it's always a work in progress. So I'm always concerned about how the students getting in the middle of that. And, there's no question about it. They're guinea pigs for how we do that in the most non-offensive way, meaning we're trying out new things and part of it is to see how they do. And I think we owe it to them to look at what the outcomes are after they leave. And I don't know how you do that, but I think we owe it to them to make sure that when we offer them a way to access education, that it's a valid way, and that when they leave and go to the next place or go to the next university, go to a university, that they can function in an environment where there may be a completely different online environment than there is there. And so.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm very interested in that data too. I'm going to try and talk to some folks and figure out if there's a way to collect.
Well, thanks very much. It was an education.
I can quickly share a couple of things, and then I noticed that Michelle moved up in the room. So if Vice Chancellor Fishstall would like to come and say something, but we do get that data from UCSD and San Diego State on the success rates of our students who transfer there. It's the institutional agreement level, so it's not broadly across every transfer institution, but our primary ones, we do get that feedback from. I don't know that we've broken it down by what were the predominant course modalities of our students to see if there's a distinction there, because I don't believe we get it at the student individual level. We get it at the 94% of the students who transferred successfully completed their degree within the next number of years or courses. But something for us to continue talking about in our SEDICA meetings, that would be a good topic. Michelle, did you want to expand?
Yeah, two pieces. On the data piece, the other thing to keep in mind is that when you're talking about our students, they're taking online classes. We don't necessarily have fully online degrees that we've identified our students enrolled in. So that's the other piece. If you're looking at class to class versus just, we have a student who's taken some modality that's not just in the classroom. So there's a number of data components that we'd have to see if we can actually access from that perspective. On the other piece around assessment, these are huge and constant conversations we're having when we're talking about AI. In our Innovation Day last week, lots of conversation of how do the faculty create assessments and really change the way they're assessing and teaching in light of the existence of AI. So those are very deep conversations that have been happening for the last year and a half. Not that there are any excellent solutions that lots of people have come up with, but there are different ways of approaching it. It just takes a lot of effort on the faculty part.
Well, assuming that AGI doesn't come along and wipe out the human race, we'll continue to plug on.
So our faculty are trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
Marcia.
Thank you for the presentation. I'm very excited to see how far ahead we are, because I had heard that we weren't that far ahead, but we are. And I want to say that I know so many people who are working who this is the only way they continue their education. And then we have this bachelor program over at Miramar that is fully online. And on the top of my head, my first thought is not, are they going to cheat? No, these are all working adults in the field who want to now get ahead and get that bachelor's degree. And I'm excited because I know that the opportunity for us as a district to grow even more, to be highlighted on the national scene because of what we're doing here and all these other programs that we're putting out there and this zero textbook cost. I mean, I sort of was around when it started, but I mean, I taught a class and I did everything I could to not make them buy the book. But because I found out on Friday that I was going to teach on Monday, all of that information was already out there. And students started coming to me right away saying, can we use an old version? And of course I said, of course you can. And you can also go to the library, but that was about it. That's all we had. And then only to find out that, of course, every year they change the textbook, a little bit so that it's not exactly. And then it turns out I gave assignments that were not in the older versions. So it was a big hassle for the students and having to adjust, of course. But I love this idea of zero textbook costs or low textbook costs and what we're doing to, advance all the options for all of our students for them to all be successful. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Magana. Anyone else over here? Student? Yes, please.
So we've spoken before. It's great to see you again. Speaking entirely as an individual and not representing Miramar's student body as a whole, because I don't have that data. I have experience being in classes which textbooks are required, and getting those textbooks as quick as possible, I can say confidently, has secured my success in those courses. And so hearing that that's a noticeable thing and that you are really pushing to make sure that the student body has access to the materials that they need for their courses means a lot to me as somebody who is a student and interacts with students every single day. And I think that it is not a small thing. I really appreciate the professor's perspective as well, having to jump over the hurdles of not having all the tools necessary to support the students that you are trying to instruct and teach. I imagine can be very stressful. And having been one of those students myself, I can say it is very stressful and it can impede on one's ability to learn and be successful. And I really enjoyed your presentation. I appreciate you spending the time to educate us all about it. And I look forward to seeing where you're going to go with it. Thank you.
Thank you. It's interesting. Well, I mean, what else can I say? I agree. I mean, with everybody, I think you gave us a lot of information. It was a really good presentation. I'm gonna be very honest with you. When you gave us the QR code, I was being, like kind of funny. I mean, you could probably tell by my face, but I think I said something like, I would like our students, to come and like socialize, and interact. And the bot, I think that's that's a very thoughtful, response, and then, switch to what you gave it. So, I mean, I think it's great to hear, that our students are liking what we are offering, but I hope that there's room for everyone, right? And I think we're being mindful of that. I mean, I think of even, counselors and therapists that are now offering online sessions only, and it's hard for me to understand. I'm not a therapist, I'm not into that in that field, but how can they be, entirely successful? Because you always think of the human touch, needed in that situation. So you can see, that I struggle. I'm mindful of, what's in front of us, but we'll see. We shall see. Anything you want to do?
Well, when you were talking about training counselors, that's my area. And I agree with you. I do not believe that it's a good idea to train. I mean, they can get subject matter information, but to apply skills and to be able to work successfully with humans, they have to have humans in front of them. So because there's so much nonverbal communication that's super important, that happens in the room that you may not catch in an online conversation. You just get comments and you're just answering comments. But that doesn't always get to the heart of the matter, and it might take longer for people to really see what the real issues are in that particular format. But
Yeah.
But for some people, that's the only way they can get
Right.
help.
Mm-hmm.
And so therefore it's better than nothing.
Yeah.
It's just not perfect.
A lot. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think it is our responsibility to try to find innovative ways to eliminate barriers to students. And I was a college student during the pandemic. And so I immediately had to get used to that transition almost in days. And so it was hard for me because I am a visual in-person learner, but I quickly adapted just because I had no other choice. So I think that having the options is wonderful. Like for students who have me, I had 2 jobs and 2 kids. So I almost needed to be online the entire time I was finishing school. But when it got to certain things like my externship for therapy to train to be a therapist, I needed to be in person. So there is some things that we need to seek out and get an understanding of what actually could be a successful outcome for online learning. I don't believe you should take biology online. That's, you need to go to labs for that. I don't think that should be an option. But English, you can absolutely take an English course online, or ASL. I took that online as well. You can absolutely take that online. So there's some courses that this could be applicable for. And I like the fact that there's multiple options of the variation of online. So that's pretty unique as well. But I agree to disagree with everyone pretty much.
Yeah, I used to control that urge because the students we're dealing with now have grown up in a virtual environment. But now that we know how damaging and it is, and how much damage it's done to individuals who grew up in that environment, and we're seeing some self-selection with Gen Alpha just moving away from that. And well, right now, worldwide, 35% of schools don't allow smartphones. So it's, there's a trend away from that virtual environment. So putting it in the right place, I think is vitally important. And that is part of our responsibility at all levels, is to make sure that students get the training that they need. Most of my information is anecdotal. I read articles and I consider the source, but the inability of some of the recent graduates to do group projects or interact face to face, and work in a group in a face to face setting, it really is apparently quite a bit of a problem. to do that, since they're used to doing it virtually. But yet I have a friend of mine who works in software, and all of his clients are in India and China. So that's their only option to do it. Do you stop doing that work? No, I don't think so. But it is incumbent upon us to make sure that they understand that. That's why I'm sort of an advocate of a sort of a online ethics course for every student that we have, very much like we have some general education courses that they have to take. I don't think that's going to
Would
be
you like to say,
practical, though.
sorry. Would you like to say something before I allow someone on Zoom? Denise, I think, has her hand up.
Oh,
Are
I
you
was
okay?
just going to say, I appreciate the blend. Yeah, we're here to support. Yeah.
Thank you. Go ahead, Denise.
Hi, is it okay if I just make a quick comment? I wasn't really sure of my role here.
Yes.
Okay. I really have enjoyed hearing this discussion. So I am an English, and we call it ELAC, as you know, in our district, English Language Acquisition Professor. So it's a real mix for me. I want to let you know that I love teaching online. So I teach online asynchronous English composition courses, and I also teach the English language acquisition courses mostly in person. So I have a real mix, and I love having the multilingual student classes in person. Those students are like craving that community. I just came from a class today that had 14 different languages and cultures represented, and they want to learn English and talk and make friends and talk with each other. But I also have courses for those, English C1000 and C1000 comp students who are not taking all their classes online. To a few of your points, they have some classes in person, but they have work, they have family, they have other responsibilities. So being able to take one class online, and they sometimes choose English for that, is really, really helpful for them. I wanted to say a couple points. I've been teaching online well before COVID for a long time. And it is very different than what we think of. So I'm proud to say I'm a Gen Xer. We did not grow up with online classes. Like, I had a landline phone and, no iPad. So this was a real switch for me to teach online and realize that community can be formed, that there can be real substantive interaction, that in some cases, my online classes, the community is even tighter than an in-person. I know it sounds weird, but just imagine you're in a very large in-person lecture and you just come in, you sit in the back, the teacher lectures, you take a test and you go home. Or you log into an online class where you're working in group projects, you're doing videos, the professor's meeting on Zoom, you have the wait time that you need to prepare and answer and talk and add to a discussion board. And every single person's voice is heard, not the 3 loudest students that sometimes come up in the classroom. So it sounds really weird, but sometimes I feel actually even closer and know more about my online students. But that is because of the hard work that online faculty do to make those courses community-based, with authentic assessment, ensuring that students are there to learn. And to the point of generative AI and cheating, our students are not coming to cheat. They're coming to be successful, and they're doing it in any way possible. So I think starting with that mindset's really important. But I just appreciate everyone's viewpoint. It's so interesting to hear. But I will just say, I think that it's hard to envision what an online class can be if you've never been an online student in a very well-developed online course. Like, there's just no way to know because we didn't grow up that way. I didn't. I never sat in an online class. So I want to kind of assure all of you that the online faculty are working so hard to make these courses valuable and full of learning for our students, because we want them to be successful as they move forward. But I have very few students who are taking everything online. They are getting a real mix. And I love to see them on campus. I'll see a student that I had online, like walking, to the bookstore to get a cup of coffee. And we recognized each other because we see each other even in the online setting. I'm doing videos every week. They're hopping on and doing video comments and discussions and working with groups. So they're making those connections even virtually. But I just want to say thank you for giving me the space to share my own experiences as well.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'll leave it at that. Beautifully said. Thank you.
Yeah, just wish I'd had the opportunity to say this while our faculty members could still be with us, but I think we still have some online. We've been very deliberate, and I hope part of what the board was able to hear in Dean Weston's presentation, I don't think at any point you heard him say, outside of when we had to because of COVID, we're forcing people to do anything. And that's been consistent across educational services under Vice Chancellor Topham's leadership, and innovation is institutional innovation and effectiveness under Vice Chancellor Fishtall's leadership. But I have heard the feedback that offering a lot of voluntary opportunities to engage and learn and experiment with these things has created the impression that that's what we're trying to encourage, just without saying it forcefully. And so I just want everybody who is still listening, and particularly those who offered public comment about some of the concerns around some of these topics, we hear you and will continue to adopt that approach of letting faculty lead on this, telling us what we need to provide to do it successfully. Those experiences in the classroom with the students, guiding how we understand what's effective, what is not. I appreciate Trustee Milgram's comments. I mean, we are all in an experiment in various degrees, but that feedback is critical, and being able to continue to adapt to what's happening in the landscape, the needs of our students, the future of technology. And I don't anticipate at any point this becomes something of a top-down, everybody must, barring global pandemics and things that we have no other choice. But we'll continue to invest in faculty's exploration and telling us what needs to happen in policy, future adoption of technology, modalities, et cetera. So just want to say that explicitly, because I've heard that feedback, that even just doing things as an opportunity for people to engage who want to, there was a perception of, well, we're kind of being told we have to, or somehow if we don't engage, that's going to be viewed negatively. Not at all. There are many different solutions to serve a very diverse group of students coming in, and one size fits all never fits anyone. And I don't think that should ever be our approach.
Thank you. Yes, and I mean, I was listening, to the instructor, and even, like peer observation, right? Like sharing their approaches, could be very valuable. Because when she was talking, I mean, I kept thinking about our little what is it? Our statement, part of our mission statement, what you came up with, the Be, Belong, and Become, and how like the way that she was talking about, or Denise was talking about, was very aligned, to that. And I could, by her talking, I could sense, the kind of work that she's doing in her online classes. So thank you again. A big topic, and you could tell that we could keep talking about it for quite a while, but great job all around. So now, seeing no further business on the agenda, and if there are no objections, this meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.